talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to Question Reality. Question Reality with Priscilla Leona. Priscilla Leona. Only on LA Talk Radio.
Hi, welcome to Question Reality. I'm your host, Priscilla Leona, and we are coming to you live from Studio City, California. Our show is broadcast every Sunday from 5 p.m. to 5:50 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, if this is your first time tuning in, our show will help you question your career reality. This show is for you if you were, are, or might be considering a career in the entertainment industry. Our guest will provide advice, resource information on how and what it takes to successfully pursue a career in show business. Our guests work in various professions of entertainment, so that means we will definitely have someone on the show sooner or later from a career that you are interested in. Now, if you want to check out our past guests, read their bios, listen to their interview instantly, or download one of the shows, go to the LA Talk Radio website. You should be on there right now if you're listening to me, but just in case you're on your iPhone or iPod, I never know what the heck it is they listen to, but it's the LA Talk Radio website, and the address is latalkradio.com. And you click at the link, on the link at the top of the website that says Channel 1, and then you scroll down and you look for the graphic of our show and Question Reality, of course, and you click that link. And this will take you directly to our archive page where you can view the list of our past guests. And our shows are also available for download on iTunes under the podcast section. You just type in Question Reality Radio in the search box. And I tell you, I have been trying to get them up. It is like pulling teeth for me to get all of the shows. I have shows from 2008, 2009, and of course this year I'm a little behind. I've been getting emails, where's my show? I can't find it on iTunes. Well, I'm telling you, I am trying my best, but you're just going to have to be patient, honey, because I am a little slow. I have to hire another assistant to get that done. Okay, so if you want to find out about future guests, you can visit the official Question Reality website directly, and that address is questionreality.us. Not .com, questionreality.us for United States. And we have been so fortunate. The show has become so popular. I tell you, I'm thrilled. We are booked all the way through the end of March, and they just keep coming. I tell you, I've got emails. I'm probably, by the time I get through with the emails, or my assistant gets through with the emails, will probably be maybe I'd say maybe May or June, which I'm really, really happy about. And I thank you so much for recommending your friends and your fellow coworkers and your family members who work in the entertainment business. Please keep it coming. Send us an email if you know someone that's a top industry professional and would love to come on the show and help others learn about their profession and how to give tips and resource information to help other people pursue a career in entertainment. Now, we have a fantastic guest for you today. Every week we have a great guest, but this one, I tell you, I gotta say that there are not many people in the world that can say that they have a friend or know someone that has this occupation. This guy is an international grand champion whistler. His name is Steve Herbst. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, he's going to get me. He is a fantastic whistler. We're going to have him perform live on the show. Very exciting. And I want you to check out his website. It's stevethewhistler.com. Steve, STEVETHEWHISTLER.com. Maybe you can check that out after the show. Maybe you can do it while you're listening to him. But he has all of his little clips on there, and you can listen to how fantastic he is. But you will get a live version today about 5:30, so you're going to have to tune in. Now, Steve the Whistler Herbst, again, as I said, he's an international grand champion whistler, the only man named International Whistling Entertainer of the Year 3 times, and a member of the Whistlers Hall of Fame, along with the wonderful Bing Crosby. I didn't even know there was a Whistlers Hall of Fame, but there you go. There is one. And he's demonstrated his 3-octave range while performing in Avery Fisher and Carnegie Hall, as well as the Kennedy Center, plus venues all around the globe, including one of my favorite countries, Japan. And he was featured in and also narrated an award-winning feature-length documentary film, which was called Pucker Up. Love it. Pucker Up, the Fine Art of Whistling. And he regularly performs in various nightclubs all around New York City. So if you go on his website, I am so sure that he has his performances listed, and you can catch a show if you live in New York City. You may have also seen or heard him on TV commercials, on shows like Today, Good Morning America, the CBS Early Show, CBS Sunday Morning, and he was also on one of my favorite sitcoms, Malcolm in the Middle. So Steve, of course, lives in New York City with his wife, Melinda, and he teaches and coaches whistling for all levels, from beginners to professional musicians. And so if you want to learn how to whistle and do it professionally, if it's something that tweaks you up, you want to call Steve the Whistler, stevethewhistler.com. And he's a talented baritone. Steve also sings and has been a soloist with the University Glee Club of New York City for 32 years. So very, very exciting to have this profession. I can't whistle. I try. I can do it in little teeny itsy bitsy patches, but it just amazes me that people can actually whistle and have it sound like a song. So we are in for a treat today. So again, for more information and to view his live concerts, he has videos, etc., go to his website, stevethewhistler.com. So without further ado, do we have the famous international grand champion whistler with us today, Steve Herbst?
Hello, Priscilla.
Where the heck? Is that you, Steve?
It is I.
Oh, my God, what an impressive little brief bio. I'm sure it could have gone on paragraph after paragraph, but I force you people to give me one, because when I initially started asking you talented people for things, I got pages and pages. So I know that we kind of condensed it, but let's kind of start with the question that I have everyone answer, and that is, when you were a little teeny itsy bitsy little whistler boy, Steve Herbst, what did you want to be when you grew up? What were the occupations that you thought that you wanted to do?
Well, interestingly enough, the very first occupation of which I can recall being aware was to become an opera singer. And this was because my grandparents, whom I used to visit fairly often, were big opera buffs, and they always had opera playing. But somewhere along the way, I got interested in rock and roll and the Motown sound and so forth, and I kind of forgot about opera, although I do sing some operatic stuff as part of my vocal repertoire.
Wow, now, my goodness. Now, I have a little opera singer in our family. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but do you know a little opera singer named Marilyn Horne?
Of course.
Ah, that is my dad's cousin. So my name is Priscilla Leona Horn. So I just don't like the horn, when I was little, come blow your horn, blah, 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 blah. So we just like Priscilla Leona. So yeah, so I'm very familiar with the world of opera. I also used to do a little bit of opera as an extra way back in the day. I was in Der Rosenkavalier. So that is a special breed of people. I mean, I've done theater for a very long time, but I thought it was the same doing opera. But the people in opera are a whole different breed. And may I ask you why you didn't continue to pursue a career in opera? Because it's such a noble profession.
Well, the best answer I think I could give you in terms of what my thinking might have been as a kid was it wasn't cool, so I didn't pursue it. But a more informed answer as an adult might be that it's very difficult to pursue a career in opera. Actually, it's very difficult to pursue a career in show business in general. But in this country, opera is not as appreciated as it is in Europe. So the opportunities are pretty limited, particularly for women, particularly for sopranos. There's a lot of competition and not a lot of venues, not a lot of opportunity. Whereas in Europe, you have a lot of opportunity, which is why many opera singers go over to Europe to try to find work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, are you a soprano or a baritone?
Well, first of all, sopranos would be, a woman's,
Oh, yeah. I thought you said you were a soprano. I'm like, that's weird. Okay, because you just said you were a baritone. Okay.
The sopranos. Although, you do have, boy sopranos, before their voices change.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
At stage, I would have been considered a boy soprano. But I am what would be called a baritone now.
Okay. So you didn't want to be an opera singer because it wasn't cool. Opera is one step above the ballet dancer for the young boy. So you should have been focusing on that. At least I don't have to wear tights, but I can understand. So what other occupations have you held? You obviously didn't pursue that. So let's take you into, you're a teenager. You're now ready to graduate high school. What are you focusing on now for being a profession?
My intention as a teenager and into my early 20s was to become an attorney. In fact, I took pre-law courses at the University of Pennsylvania, which was my alma mater for my bachelor's, and then I went to law school for a year. But I left law school and just went into the business world initially. And I spent some time selling insurance, and I spent some time as the youngest time salesman in New York, working for CBS here in New York City, Channel 2. And then I got into the advertising business and actually pursued a career in the advertising business very successfully for a long time, and I retired from that 6.5 years ago.
So you actually went into professions that, would you say that they were occupations that you kind of were thrust into by chance, and that being a professional whistler or singer was really your true passion, or did you really honestly pursue it with full gusto every single job that you had?
Well, my best answer is somewhere in between, or both. Mm-hmm. I certainly pursued the advertising career with great dedication. I was a senior vice president of an ad agency, and I was good at that and enjoyed that, and worked very hard at it for many years, and also continued to sing avocationally. For most of that time. You mentioned the Glee Club that I sing with in New York, the University Glee Club of New York City. And whistling was something that I was doing for my own fun and pleasure up until the mid-'90s. I went to a high school reunion in 1993, and I ran into a classmate of mine who had been in the chorus with me. I was president of the high school chorus. She was one of the singers in the chorus. She was also a member of the band and a member of the orchestra. And I pulled her aside, and I said, I'd like you to hear what I've been doing with whistling. And I took her into a room where I wouldn't disturb anybody, and I whistled something for, I think it was probably one of the Bach-Brandenburg Concerti. And she enjoyed it and called me a couple months later to say that she had heard a fellow on the radio who had come in second in a whistling competition, and she thought that I could give him a run for the money. So I called the radio station, which was NPR, and they referred me to him, and he referred me to the program director of the Whistlers Convention and Competition, and I found out what I needed to do to get into the competition. And I had been aware of the competition. Every year the winner was on the Carson show, the Tonight Show, and I'd forget about it until I saw the next winner and say, oh, shucks, I could have, I got to look into that someday. But now I had advance notice. So I sent in a sample tape and a photo and the bio and went down to compete for the first time in 1994. And I had never run into anybody that whistled as well or better than I, so I thought it was going to be shooting ducks in a barrel for me, but I came in fifth, which was quite a surprise. I mean, it was a good news, bad news thing. The bad news was, I got into the finals, but I only did fifth. But the good news was that I felt like I had found my tribe after 40 years of wandering the desert.
Wow, and so did you always whistle when you were little? You just started whistling tunes, or did you actually take a class in it? I mean, how did you become so proficient and such a master?
My dad played piano, organ, guitar, ukulele, recorder, painted, sculpted, sang, and whistled. And he used to whistle in the car when we went for rides, and when he was working in his wood shop in the basement. So the whistling and the singing, captured my fancy, and I started, I was singing in public in front of audiences of 1,000 or more people when I was 7 years old in third grade, and I became a soloist with the grade school chorus. But the whistling I kept to myself. I never thought, it wasn't as though I thought it was something bizarre or something to keep secret. I just didn't think anybody'd be interested in it. It just wasn't any. It's not like I had any stuff going on about it. But
because there wasn't anybody else. There wasn't anything on TV. It wasn't really something talked about too much. Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a chorus for me to join in high school, but there was no place to go to whistle.
Right.
So I started whistling everywhere I went. On my way to walking to school and walking home. And I lived in an area where kids walked to school, and it was a time when kids could walk to school without, being worried about anything.
Right.
It was a more innocent time, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I would practice tunes, walking to and from school. And when I got home, I would go into my room and close the bedroom door and turn on the phonograph and play. Mostly I was playing Peter and the Wolf by Prokofiev and imitating all the instruments, doing my best to imitate all the instruments. So, you had instruments representing different characters and so forth. And it's by having engaged in that I developed the 3-octave range and the different sonorities to be able to be compared to clarinets and trumpets and oboes and piccolos and what have you. And by the time I was 10 years old, I was, very proficient. But as I said, I kept it to myself until, I got into college. When I went to the University of Pennsylvania, I used to, listen to music, and, I was whistling all 9 symphonies of Beethoven in my dorm room, and lists like preludes and all the violin concerti and so forth for my own pleasure. Once in a while somebody would stick his head in my dorm room and say, what were you just whistling? And I'd say, that was, Beethoven's 7th or something. and never thought, that I would do much with it. I had a best friend in college who used to play jazz piano, and we'd go into a rehearsal room by ourselves, and we would just jam, for our own pleasure. It never occurred to me to be performing in public anywhere that anybody else would be interested. It was strictly for fun. But when I was singing with the University of Pennsylvania Glee Club, we did a couple of numbers which normally would have called for a flute or a recorder. And the director of the Glee Club, my mentor, Bruce Montgomery, used to whistle in lieu of having a flute playing. So one night he came up dry. He wasn't able to get his whistle going.
Okay.
Which is what all whistlers dread. I mean, I have a bottle of water here at my side, just in case. Mm-hmm. And he couldn't get the whistle going. So I came up to him after the concert and I said, I could do that for you. And he said, hey, it's all yours. So for the rest of my years at Penn, I was whistling where we needed, somebody to whistle instead of a flute. And the most outstanding instance of which was when the Glee Club was invited to perform for visiting royalty. Emperor Hirohito of Japan's brother, Prince Mikasa, was visiting the United States with his bride, touring the country, and we did a concert at the William S. Paley House out on the main line, Philadelphia main line. And I was introduced to the prince and the princess afterwards as the soloist because I had been asked to simulate a Japanese reed flute hitting high E flat with a grace note sans vibrato. And, it's pretty heady stuff for a teenager.
Yes, I would say it definitely is. My God, that must have been a total thrill for you. Did you understand the magnitude of what you were involved with at the moment, or is it only in retrospect that you really appreciate that now?
No, I was pretty appreciative of it at the time. I mean, it was an awesome experience. And the Prince said how much he enjoyed it and all of that. It was something that I had a special, kick out of doing.
So you continue on doing your other jobs, which are obviously fulfilling. You were successful. So you still continued your whistling. So you actually kept that and got great joy and satisfaction from not only your daytime job, but also your whistling. So at that point while you were working, it was a hobby in which you were still gaining recognition and still moving up the, the ladder, so to speak, in the whistling world. So you were able to be successful in other occupations as well as whistling, and you just continued that. You were able to do that simultaneously. It didn't interfere. One didn't overlap or interfere with another one at all.
There was no conflict between them, and back in the I don't know, I guess in the 70s and the 80s, when the CB radio was a big deal. Mm-hmm. I had a CB radio, and of course I was talking like a truck driver from Arkansas, but my handle was the Whistler, and that was kind of fun too, but had nothing to do with actually doing any whistling. There was a band that I heard perform somewhere, and they said they were going to be performing somewhere else, so I went to see them. And the head of the band, it was Dick Solberg in the Sun Mountain Band, recognized me in the audience, and he was aware of me as a singer. He knew nothing about the whistling. And he came over to me and said, hey, Steve, how would you like to come up and sing something with us? So I said, well, I'd love to, but what I'd really like to do is come up and whistle with you. And he went, huh? What? And he said, well, okay. I got to hand it to people who allow for something they actually have no idea how it's going to turn out.
Right.
And I went up with the band, and I started jamming with the band like, another musical instrument. Mm-hmm. And nobody had heard that before.
Right.
And I actually whistled with Dick Solberg and the Sun Mountain Band for something like 11 years. Every time they came to New York, I mean, I wasn't doing it professionally. It was just for fun. You know,
Right.
he'd be the audience. He'd call me up, and and I would jam with the band.
Wow.
But this was how in essence, I was taking what I was doing to a new level, because prior to that, it would be I'd be at a wedding, or I'd be at a some kind of, an anniversary party, and there'd be a band there.
Doing the gigs, right? Like
it would be like, hey, cousin Steven likes to whistle. Why not call him up?
Now let's give Cousin Steve some money. Now, since you've retired, Steve, is this a full-time job for you now, so to speak?
No.
Okay.
I do concerts, and I do TV commercials, and I give coachings and lessons. Here in a city like New York, I could whistle just about any night of the week somewhere in some nightclub.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say it's a paying gig. It's like, this past Monday, I whistled at Birdland, which is, a very famous nightclub here in New York. It's not for pay. It's for fun. When I do concerts, and I get paid, and I get paid nicely. I've done a number of them in the last couple of months, but it's not enough to keep bread on the table. So.
That was my next question. I was going to ask, I'd like to get some professional career advice and tips and resources from you. My question was, for someone who loves whistling as you do and is thinking about possibly pursuing it as a profession, in your expert opinion, can one make a living as a professional whistler only?
Not in this country.
Okay.
In Europe, I've heard that it's possible if you're exceptional. It's like, as I likened it to the opera singing business. It's easier for men to find work in this country as an opera singer because there aren't as many men that go into it, like the ballet. But it's that much harder for women to find work as an opera singer in this country, which is why so many of them wind up going to Europe. But it's similar with the with whistling in this country. It's very tough to make it in show business, period. I was talking with a friend of mine who's a cabaret singer last week, and the percentage of singers that are making a living at it and not having another job as a teacher, as a voice coach, as maybe as a waitress, or something else, is a relatively small percentage. And the problem where whistling is concerned is whistling and making whistling an idea whose time is returned, and we can talk about the return part, which has been my motto for the past 20 years or so, is it's an uphill battle. People are not aware of musical whistling. I'll give you a case in point. When I won the Grand Championship, I was awarded this big trophy. And I had stuck as much of it in a bag as I could, and I was bringing it home to New York. And riding up in the elevator to my apartment, one of my neighbors said, "Oh, what's the trophy for?" And I showed her, International Grand Champion, International Whistlers Competition. She said, "Oh, congratulations. Let me hear the winning whistle."
Wow.
It was one note, like the long note. And, people have no appreciation or awareness until they hear it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They think it's, like hog calling or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, or the piercing blast for a cab, calling a taxi. And they really don't get it. This is why I didn't. I've been asked that I want to go for the Guinness Book of Records. The Guinness Book of Records would be like who could whistle the longest or who could whistle the loudest. It's not about who could whistle the most like a musical instrument. So I said, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder what idea they had in mind for even coming up with that idea. I mean, what could you do? That's limited. I understand.
It just shows that people didn't understand, what it was, all about.
What are they doing, Steve? What are they doing? The people who are the powers that be that hold these international grand whistling championships? I don't know if there is a board, a foundation, a committee. What are they doing to bring professional whistling into the forefront and to make it more popular, to make people more aware of it? Or is there anyone doing it? Is there no money? What exactly is going on with that?
Budget is a big problem. The International Whistlers Convention has been doing, yeoman service trying to make people aware of it, and they contact all the media outlets and so forth and so on. Well, back in the early part of this decade, like 2002, 3, 4, 5, those years. I had a PR firm on retainer that promoted me, and I was on more television shows and radio shows and interviewed in papers from coast to coast than I could possibly recount. You listed many of them, at the beginning. But, there were stories about me in the Washington Post and the New York Times and the Daily News and the New York Post and the Chicago Tribune and the Los Angeles Times and the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel. They all wrote stories about me. I was sponsoring all of that, So, to get bookings, to get concert gigs, to perform with symphony orchestras, which I've done, is an uphill battle in this, in this country. That people are just not aware of it. Getting an agent to beat the bushes for you is tough because they just don't see the potential. The agents are interested if they can make money, because they're making 10% of what you make.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't see it, then they're not going to do it. So most of the whistlers are trying to get opportunities, develop the opportunities themselves, and it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah. So there's nobody that's spearheading any kind of campaign to say let's get whistling out in the forefront. Let's make it more popular. Let's have more of a competition. Because I tell you one thing, I was very sad to see, one of my favorite shows is America's Got Talent. I was very sad to see that there were no whistling, no competitors for whistling on America's Got Talent. And I think that I know one of your, I don't know exactly what the word would be. I know someone that also competes in whistling championships whose name is Carol Ann Kaufman. And I don't know if you know her, but
I know Carol Ann very well. We whistlers all know each other.
Oh, okay.
Carol Ann and I were in Japan together 2 years ago.
Okay, so she was on my show, and I called her up and I said, she was on my show years ago when I first, in 2008, and I had her on because she's also a comedian and does other things. But I said, oh my God, that would be a perfect opportunity for her to go on the show. What better show is there right now than America's Got Talent? And I thought for sure that I was going to see a bunch of people on there whistling. Not a one. Now, I don't know if it was if there were people that auditioned and they just didn't get chosen, but I would find that hard to believe because they are always looking for unique talent. And people of your caliber, and also Carol Ann Kaufman, because I do understand she won something in Japan as well, but people of your caliber, there is no way that you would not make it to the final 120 or at least get on television. So what do you have to say about that?
It's funny you should ask me because the America's Got Talent story, I don't even know if we have enough time to talk about the America's Got Talent story, but I'll try to answer your question.
Let's talk about it. No, I love America's Got Talent story. Go ahead.
I mean, I've watched every episode, and look, the very first season of America's Got Talent, they called me, and they invited me to a VIP quote unquote audition, which meant I didn't have to stand on the line with thousands of people. And they were very excited, very enthused. They took a copy of my CD. They interviewed me. They did videotape, and they sent me 64 pages of forms to release, of releases. Like if a Klieg light fell on my head,
Yes, I know. I'm familiar with it. Yeah, you need a psych eval, a medical exam. They put you through it. Yeah, I understand.
They wanted the name and contact information for everybody and anybody I ever lived with.
Yes.
And, very intrusive and invasive kind of stuff. And I was going along with all this stuff. They'd call me repeatedly. They wanted to know. One day I got 5 calls from them. And I'd asked this guy who was calling me. I said, "Are you telling me that I'm going to be going to Hollywood?" He said, "Yeah, we want you to, block off 10 days to go to Hollywood." And I said, "Well, is it a sure thing? Am I on or what? What's the deal?" Because I had been told don't discuss it with anybody. So they said, "Well, if it gets to me, it's 95% that you're going to be on, but until you hear from the travel people, don't count on it." So I said, all right. One day I got 5 phone calls from them. They called me up and asked me, what kind of microphone do I want to use? How much time do I need to get set up? Do I have any special effects like fog rolling in on the floor? And I told them, I said, look, just show me where my mark is. It could be a wireless mic. It could be a wired mic, not a lavalier type mic. And, all of that. And then I got the 5th call telling me that I didn't make the cut.
Oh, my God.
And I'm thinking to myself, didn't make the cut. They contacted me. They've been having me fill out 64 pages of forms, saving, blocking off time, all of that. And I didn't make the cut. I've been at the Kennedy Center and at Carnegie Hall.
God.
I've at Lincoln Center performing, with a full symphony orchestra of 91 instruments, and I didn't make the cut.
Oh, God,
and I watched the show.
ridiculous.
I watched the show, and my wife, I practically had apoplexy. So when I saw some of the acts that did get on the show,
yeah, I know.
and I turned to my wife and I'd say, I don't get it. I just don't get it. Now they had some woman come out who looked like Minnie Pearl. You remember Minnie Pearl?
I remember that. Yeah.
Tag hanging off the brim.
Yes.
So this comes out, and she's a whistler.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah, I remember that.
she says, and she starts acting. She starts talking about how, I think I see the golden-throated thrush, and she starts doing like a little bird whistling.
Yes.
And it was like in 5 seconds. 3 X's, and she was off. And that was whistling. Now, they contacted a number of the leading whistlers in the country, and they asked them, because at that beginning season, they had, for people who weren't good enough to be on the regular show what you could do in 30 seconds. It was kind of like a consolation exposure.
Yeah.
And a couple of us were invited to that sort of thing and declined. Whistling was not being treated with appropriate respect. Now, a couple of seasons ago, they had a mother and daughter team who are whistlers. Elaine Clark and her daughter were on, and they got X'd off, and then they were brought back at the very end of the last show to with all the people who had gotten kicked off or whatever. And but this year, one of our society, one of our group, a hand whistler, was on the show and did advance, for a couple of rounds, and we were very happy to see that whistling.
Oh my God! I think I remember that. The guy, right? The guy who did the hand whistling. Yes.
No. He's a woman. She's
who was that guy?
Like that. So, whistling has gotten some exposure, but, we've the only explanation we can come up for how I was treated and how, how the show is run is that they look for people who have real talent, and they look for people who are, buffoons, people who, are just, can't possibly be considered seriously to win.
It's good television. Yeah.
Why they wouldn't have a whistler like myself on? I really really can't understand or well appreciate.
Well, we're gonna have to pick it next time to get you on there, Steve, because you definitely deserve to be on that show. And I tell you, if I run across one of my friends that's casting for that, I'm gonna put in a harsh word for them. So let me ask you, we're already at 5:40. I told you the show is going to go fast. You didn't believe it, but I want to make sure that we get a sample in. People have been waiting. We're overdue. People are probably chomping at the bit to hear you. Let's do something. Whatever you want to do. Let's do an acoustic version. Tell me what song you want to do. And let's do an acoustic version so everybody can hear what I have been going on and on and on about with this Steve the Whistler Herbst. What do you got for me? What do you want to do?
Well, why don't I give you probably want something quick, huh?
Yeah, well, I'd say let's do something that I hate to even say. We were just talking about that. Well, let's see. It's 5:41. I want to make sure we get something in that sounds good, that really represents you. So why don't we do, if you want to do up to 5:45, and then we'll spend the last 5 minutes with you telling the audience, anybody who wants to pursue a career, what I would like to know, what characteristic traits that you feel it takes to become a professional whistler. I would love to touch base about that, and what lasting words that you have for anyone that's thinking about pursuing a career. So we can either do that now and you can sing the show out, or you can sing now and then we can talk about the last things that I want to cover.
Well, I'm not singing, I'm whistling, but why don't I do something from my my CD, Broadway and Beyond.
Yay! Is that your latest CD, Broadway and Beyond?
Yeah, well, it's the only CD I've put out yet.
Okay. And we can get this on your website. Can we also get it at Amazon or CD Baby or anywhere else?
Oh, only through my website.
Only through my website. Okay.
I'm going to give you Maria from West Side Story.
Okay. All right. Hit it. Go ahead. We got Steve the Whistler. You're on.
Okay. Thank you.
What did you take? Like one big deep breath, or did you take little tiny breaths? That's one thing. Let's talk about that real quick. As a whistler, is it very much like the way you have to control your breath like a singer, or is it different?
There's similarities. Obviously, you need breath and good lungs and breath control to do both. And if you're holding a long note, as a singer, you have to have the support from the diaphragm and all of that. Now, unlike singing, when you sing, you can only be letting air out. Some horn instruments, clarinetists, for instance, do something called circular breathing, where they're breathing in and blowing out at the same time. I don't do that, but an advanced whistling technique that I have the ability to do, and it's taken many years of practice, is being able to whistle in and out. So by doing that, I'm affecting what we would call continuo, which is giving a continuous sound. I mean, people listen and say, how is he breathing? How is he doing that? Also, learning how to take quick breaths without gasping is another thing to work on.
Now, you teach all this because, of course, you teach and you coach whistling for all levels, from beginners to professional musicians, and I assume you do that in New York. And do people just contact you if they're interested? Would they just go to your website, stevethewhistler.com, and call you, and then you would talk to them about coming to a class? Do you go to them? Do they come to you? Do you have classes? Do you do one-on-one? How does that work, Steve?
I do one-on-one. They come to me, to give an hour lesson. And, I work with them at the level they're at. I mean, I have people come to me who can't whistle at all or can whistle just a little. And I can usually extend their range by about a half an octave. And if I have somebody who's a professional musician who wants to incorporate whistling into his act, we work on not only whistling technique but stage presence and presentation, so that they can be more effective.
So, are you currently accepting students?
Yeah.
Yay! And do you cost an arm and a leg, or are you reasonably priced and you give a smile?
I'd say I cost a hell of a lot less than psychotherapists. And probably
well, there you go.
They get a better, benefit. You know what I mean?
You do, and you get that wonderful personality and that great voice. I just think your voice is so sexy. I really do. My husband's in the other room, so I'm not doing anything bad. But you have the sexiest voice. I swear, I love it. And your whistling's even sexier. I bet your wife gets a real treat every day. That's what you could do. Every Valentine's Day, she gets a whistle for Valentine's Day. How great is that? To have a man who whistles, huh?
I think she prefers to be taken out to dinner. But,
damn it.
Yeah.
Well, see, you always want something you can't have, and when you have too much, you want something else. Well, okay, so let's talk about the CD that just came from, because we're about to close the show. We got 1 minute, and I just want to tell everybody that if you want to get this CD, it is available on Steve's website, and that is stevethewhistler.com. Steve, what about the songs on? Are they pretty much all musicals? What do we have to expect when we buy your CD?
Well, I had originally intended to have the CD be just Broadway show tunes because, it could have been anything, but I decided that was going to be the first one. And it has 15 Broadway show tunes, very popular shows, tunes that everybody loves. Les Mis and Phantom of the Opera and West Side Story and South Pacific and Man of La Mancha and King and I, shows that everybody loves.
And it has musical instruments that is accompanying the whistle.
They're all accompanied. Half of them symphonic, half of them acoustic piano or acoustic piano and bass. I also sing and whistle, as well as whistle on a couple of the tunes. Like Summertime and All the Things You Are.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Steve!
It's become a signature tune for me that Danny Boy be on the CD. So that's why it's Broadway and beyond. Danny
Okay.
Boy being the and beyond part.
Okay.
And you'd be amazed at how much people want the CD for Danny Boy because of various reasons. A flight attendant on the way to Tokyo bought the CD because her husband wants to have Danny Boy played at his funeral when he dies someday.
Oh, my God. Steve, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. We should have talked about that earlier. It's already 5:50 and we got to go. See, I told you this show was going to go fast. They're going to cut us off any minute. I'm so sorry. But I just wanted to ask you if you would come back on my show next year and so we can continue. And hopefully you have some more stories and you can whistle some more, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everybody. Before I get cut off, tune in next week. Thank you, Steve. SteveTheWhistler.com. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to Question Reality. Question Reality with Priscilla Leona. Only on LA Talk Radio.